last year, the voters in New York passed an amendment to the Constitution, and it reads, it's Article 1, Section 19, that now reads, each person shall have a right to clean air and water and a healthful environment. Do you take that amendment to the Constitution to provide a right for New Yorkers to vindicate clean air, clean water, and a healthy environment in our courts?
A right to, I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Do you understand that amendment to the
Yes.
Constitution
Yes.
to provide a right of action for New Yorkers to vindicate this new constitutional right?
I would have to see the cause of action before I could rule on that, Senator.
Okay. got
But
it.
I understand the intention of this, I understand the intention of the amendment.
Okay. Just trying to sneak one past you, Judge.
No, I understand.
More seriously, see how much time I have. Just want to ask your thoughts on qualified immunity, particularly as it relates to police officers. As you may or may not know, in 2020, during the George Floyd protests, I went out to join my constituents to protest. I was pepper sprayed and falsely arrested, and qualified immunity has been one of the rights asserted by the NYPD. You have ruled on this in a number of cases, and I want to hone in on a specific fact pattern. In one case, in Davila versus City of New York, this is when the officers arrived at the apartment of someone going through a mental challenge. They both fell down the stairs. They tried to sue, and in the opinion that you signed on to, in this opinion that you signed on to, you said this qualified as something that they were immune to prosecution for because it was a discretionary action.
To civil prosecution, you mean?
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
I wasn't sure you meant criminal or civil, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so that's correct. In a different set, in People versus Sanchez, which you were ultimately vindicated on the Court of Appeals, you wrote a dissent in that in the Second Department. I believe the Court of Appeals agreed with you on the substance of the law, but there you found that, or in your dissent, you said a justification instruction to the jury was unnecessary because you did not feel that the individual was, to not use a legal phrase, in apprehension of their life. You didn't feel like it was justified even though they were being attacked, et cetera. And I just want to get your thoughts.
Well, I disagree with that fact pattern.
Okay,
but I'm sorry.
all right. Tell me what you disagree with, Judge.
Well, but the reason why I wrote the dissent was because, if you remember from the fact pattern, the defendant leaves the scene. He's gone. He's in his car. He grabs a gun and comes back and then tries to argue justification. So when you say he was in fear for his life, the reason I wrote it was that he had the opportunity to leave the scene, had left the scene, and then came back to it.
Okay,
So that was the reason for the dissent.
Okay, so I'll hone in even more specifically. You mentioned in that case, or in your dissent, that the mere fact that the person that he was afraid of was reaching for their waistband, and he thought that they were reaching for a gun, you said that the mere fact that they were reaching did not indicate that they were reaching for a weapon. And I'm just wondering, juxtaposed to the qualified immunity cases where police officers are given wide latitude when they are in fear of their life, I'm just wondering why that's different when it's a defendant.
Yeah, again, it's tough to compare qualified immunity. I don't remember the case on the qualified immunity, admittedly. It's difficult to compare a civil matter with a criminal matter. But again, I can tell you about the criminal matter. What was most striking to me is that defendants have an obligation to leave the scene, so to get a gun and come back and then argue, I was scared I was going to get shot, did not seem to be the understanding of the justification charge as I understood it, and I don't think it was an automatic warranting of it. And the other point I'll say, Senator, is that, in my opinion, if indeed that case required a justification, then every case should get a justification, and then we should just change the law and say everyone gets justification if they want it. And that's something this body can do, but based on the laws I understand it, I didn't think that under those circumstances it was wrong that it wasn't charged.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Senator.